So we talk about over-tourism and how technology actually can help us to disperse travelers. At the same time, we're sending travelers very clearly to the same place, exactly the same spot, to take exactly the same picture, because it needs to be taggable. So the technology, I think, will enhance a lot, can help a lot, but also can potentially have this limitation or this potential downside of driving everybody to exactly the same spot. And I think this is something we need to watch.
As WIT marks its 20th year in 2025, we turn the spotlight on our community to tell their stories and share their views on the evolution of online travel and technology. Conversations on Turning 20 is the collective story of WIT. As a Chinese saying goes, 以古为鉴，可以知兴替. By using history as a mirror, one can understand the rise and fall of things.
And as we talk about technology advances, I think back to those days, 2008 when I joined BCD, 2010 when I first came to WIT, and we're talking about the speed of change of technology. But honestly, at the time, not changing as fast as maybe we thought it was. I remember, we would look country by country what we could offer to our customers, and these were typically the very large corporates. It was very nuanced by country, what type of payment options were available, what the GDS setup was by country, whether low-cost carriers were involved or not. So it was quite nuanced, and I don't know that over those few years, or maybe even over the last 10, it advanced as much as everything has in the last 5, I would say 2 to 3 to 5. It feels like a lot of the limitations that we had back then are probably not necessarily gone. And when I went into Concur, obviously then it's the software that we were selling, but the supporting infrastructure behind to support corporate travel was the same, so still fed by the GDS and other supplies like Booking.com. But we didn't necessarily move because we still had limitations by country. And I think what we're seeing over the last couple of years, and what hopefully we'll see accelerated in the next few years, is that limitations or the nuances by country start to remove and the friction start to remove. It's not that you can get this in India but you can't get it in China, or you can get this in Singapore but you can't get it in Australia. So that kind of shift, I think, didn't happen as fast as we thought. I remember we were writing, as we were talking to customers, either writing the sales pitches or talking to customers out that we're looking for, it wasn't changing that much year on year. But I think we thought it was, and technology was definitely advancing, and moving to online for sure was probably the biggest advancement at that time. The use of online booking tools versus traditional servicing was probably the biggest shift, but it was still very nuanced. And I think now, being in the online space with booking, we can see the advance of technology. And obviously the last 2 years with the next gen AI, now it's game changing, I feel, really for the first time, whereas before it's been incremental change. Yeah, I think that's probably been the biggest change throughout my kind of journey, either as a corporate traveler or as a leisure traveler. And as you said, the blending of the two has become more and more prevalent. We were just touching on the kind of the hybrid space of events during that time and how the technology advanced. Now this is kind of the hybrid use of time and time when spent traveling. So people having the good that came out of COVID ultimately was this kind of flexibility in work that has allowed people to now travel potentially for longer in destinations and enjoy it more for leisure purposes. And I know I'm a classic example of that. If I am traveling for work, then I would normally tag on at least one of the weekends either side, depending on the timing that I have. And I think that more and more are seeing that, and the corporate travel behavior has generally changed. I think large corporates have reflected on their budgets and have probably reduced quite significantly, whereas the smaller SME organizations are traveling probably more and have recovered quicker than, because those big budgets, there's not the appetite to spend them as much in the large corporates as would spend hundreds of millions a year. So definitely the budgets, corporate desire has changed, and then the consumer themselves when traveling has certainly changed. I think we will continue to see more and more of that. I mean, we talked about the term bleisure, actually came out way before COVID, and we were trying to support that as well in whichever organization I've been in. That's been a phrase for a while, but it truly came true, I would say, post-COVID and the flexibility of work. Now, as companies start to move away a little bit from that flexibility that has been there for the last 5 years, what that does next, I think we have yet to see. But a lot of companies are keeping this hybrid working mode, and therefore hybrid travel, I think, will continue for them. But there are a lot of these big organizations that are going back to fully in the office. So I think time will tell a little bit on how big this stays. Yeah, I also don't like bleisure at all. But I don't know what a better word is. Just call it travel, call it what it is. But whatever you're there for, you're having an experience, whether you're there for work or pleasure. So last week I was in Hong Kong, and it was really great for me to be back. I used to go multiple times a year. I haven't been since 2019. But I was there purely for work, but I got one evening to myself, spent some time walking around. So for me, it was travel. Yeah, SMEs definitely travel recovered quicker for them in the corporate travel landscape. Mostly, I think, and again, this is a bit of a hypothesis on my side, not really better than any facts, but because, as I mentioned, for multinationals, big budgets were cut, and the appetite to bring them back was really just not there. Whereas for the SMEs, relationships are critical typically. And so they will spend the time and the money and not necessarily allocating big budgets to it, but will find ways to travel at a lower cost. But they see the importance of being in front of their customers, meeting their partners. I know we always joke that we won't travel anymore until your competitor goes, right? And then your competitor's in front of your customer or your partner, and then you go, and it starts to kind of yield this momentum again. And I think we see that much more prevalently in the SME space, like I say, where relationships become absolutely critical. In the MNC space, we're seeing it much more in the getting together internally more, because with people hybrid, if they are, getting them together became very important. That was kind of the recovery to start with through COVID. But I do think that, with the SMEs recovering more, looking to travel more, but at a lower cost typically, then there's the rise definitely of the OTAs supporting business travel. And we are seeing that more and more, all across the region. Obviously, we have a booking for business arm, but many of the OTAs have a mechanism to support, because it requires something slightly different. I mean, everybody could use just a regular OTA, but when it comes to data, reporting, security, then there are different things that a corporate is looking for than an individual traveling. So that is rising. I think we will continue to see that grow. And then the typical online booking tools are having to shift also, because it's much easier now to just sign up with a OTA for business than it is to go for a full-fledged service, because they're still targeting typically the MNCs, because that's obviously where the money is, for a full-service agency with an online booking tool support. So I think it's a space to watch. I think it's something that we continue to invest in. It's something that we see extending quite heavily, but it's still, to my point earlier, it's still a little nuanced by country in some cases, and that's what we need to move past. The most exciting, and I'm not going to be the only one to say this to you, I'm sure, is the new technology, is the next gen AI, because this allows us to do all of those things that have been restricting us for all the years. When I mentioned the nuances by country, for example, we should start to remove some of these friction points by using this technology. And it's advancing at rapid rates, which means that for all companies, we need to stay on top of it. In booking, we've got this very clear mandate to democratize AI, to make sure that everybody is looking at different use cases, because nobody's the expert in it yet, because it's changing so fast. It's not that we can leave it to the tech team or the product team or the infrastructure team. It really has to be a little bit of everybody thinking about what we can do to maximize it, not just for our own efficiency or just for our travelers' experience, but all across everything that we do. So that's for sure the most exciting. As I mentioned earlier, if we talk about the speed of travel, speed of technology change, like say, for all the years I was working in BCD, selling this not that too different a thing, honestly, even though we saw technology advancing. Now there's a completely different model that customers are looking for, and their expectations, as technology advances, their expectations grow, because the minute you have a sophisticated level of engagement with a platform, you expect that everywhere you go. I think the key thing that we are seeing on our side, because traditionally Booking has been a platform where you need to know when and where you're going. So I'm going for a weekend in Bangkok on these dates. Then we can give you everything, and we can get very personal based on what we know about you. There's a lot of search filters, so you can get quite specific about what you want using the map. Now travelers are able to use our platform and many others to actually look for inspiration. I've got this weekend free. I want to travel for no more than 3 hours. Food is very important for me. I'd like to be by a beach or not. I'd like to go to cooler temperature. So actually then people can look for inspiration on these platforms and start to think, okay, I don't know where I actually want to go. I just know I've got some free time and I want to go somewhere. And maybe I want a unique experience. Maybe I want to go where everyone's going, and what's the most popular place. So that, I think, is the difference now on the way that people are using travel platforms to actually get ideas versus just coming when you're already gone beyond that stage of the funnel and you actually just know exactly what you want. You might not know where you're going to stay, but I'm going to Phuket, and I roughly know which beaches I typically like, and so I can be quite specific. Now you don't need to be specific. You can start very big and filter yourself down versus already coming in at that point. And that will continue. And together with not knowing to a truly personalized experience can really make it an incredible experience for people. The key is making sure that what they offer is very clear, because it would be, I've got a king room, a twin room, a suite, a deluxe, and you put the pictures on because you want to make sure you differentiate between the rooms. But I think it's really important now that our partners and the accommodation providers are showing what's unique or what kind of experiences someone will have when they come to the property. So it's much less about the functionality of it and much more about the experience and the feeling that someone will get when they're there. That's been now prevalent, I guess, for a while, where we're trying to inspire people to come to a property, but we can see that much more in a platform like ours, where, like I say, people are starting at a different funnel place while coming in, so they need to make sure that they understand more than just the location on the map. Does it have a restaurant? Does it have a gym? That's almost table stakes now, and you need much more. And what was really a crazy stat for me, I realized in the research that we did, we do the travel predictions every year. And in this year, the Gen Zs and millennials will not travel to a destination that's not taggable, meaning that they will only go if it's a place that they can then post and promote and be proud of where they are with that particular picture. As that generation continues to grow and the younger ones come through, that's going to change the way that people travel. And this is what I also learned in Hong Kong, and I think it's becoming even more prevalent in China. I forget, is it Little Red Book? There's this app that tells you, come out of the MTR in Hong Kong, at this exit, take 4 steps to the left, look up, hold your camera exactly this angle, and you'll get the perfect shot of whatever it was that you were there for. But I mean, it's very specific. So that's not just, this is a great taggable location, make sure you go to see the Star Ferry or the Peak. It's a totally different thing now. So it's going to change what they're looking for from platforms like us, but it's also going to change destinations in themselves. And we talk about over-tourism and how technology actually can help us to disperse travelers. At the same time, we're sending travelers very clearly to the same place, exactly the same spot, take exactly the same picture, because it needs to be taggable. So the technology, I think, will enhance a lot, can help a lot, but also can potentially have this limitation or this potential downside of driving everybody to exactly the same spot. And I think this is something we need to watch carefully and think about as an industry, how we we don't get trapped in creating more problems, which we already recognize it is an issue in the industry, over tourism. And so how do we spread that around to protect the landscapes, protect communities, spread the travel budgets, dollars around. So it will be interesting to watch, I think. Well, first of all, I'm not Gen Z or millennial, so I'm I'm not in the same platform, so I'm not getting the same level of inspiration. Um, but that's okay. But then I do want to go to destinations that are unique. A couple of years ago, I had the fortune to go to Antarctica, which at the time I think I only knew one person who had been before. And in the last 2 years since I've been now, I can track many friends and more people that have also gone. Not that I inspire them at all, but more just that these off the beaten places are becoming very important. And people are starting to think, and myself included, I want to go while I still can and while there is still something worth experiencing. I mean, again, at Booking, we talk about the world needs to be worth experiencing if you want to make it easier for everyone to experience the world. So that was a destination that I thought you need to go now, before it changes in a very sad and negative way. But I have to say, when I got there, I was incredibly impressed with the preservation that they do. So I'm now more confident that it's well looked after and that all the tourists that go are there to protect as well as just to take those pictures. But I do think that we need to encourage people to go to different destinations, but the minute it becomes taggable, then everybody goes again. So we keep getting further and further, and at some point, again, all of these what are unique destinations or preserved destinations become the hotspots, and everybody is there. So I think we need to find a way to think about how do we prevent that, particularly as this will continue to rise. As the young generations, if that becomes it, or at some point, does everybody say, you know what, social media is not important to me, and there's a whole generation of going offline, and maybe then it changes things in a different way again. It's maybe a bit like kind of the young generation or this youngest generation now are the least drinkers of alcohol, for example. And you would have thought that was a trend that would always continue, and it's not. So maybe there's also a place where people say, you know what, I want to be offline and I don't want to post my pictures. Maybe, I don't know. Let's see. But I think that we need to be careful. I hope, I guess, more than I predict, but I hope that travel does become more frictionless. It should. I mean, now we're already seeing it. If you think about coming into Changi Airport, for example, now it's passportless. So that is even. We always thought Changi was amazing, and you could be home very quickly and get through the airport. But that, all these type of enhancements do make the experience nicer. The booking experience is getting better and better. And at Booking, we're certainly trying to make sure that we remove as much friction as possible from all the different verticals. We're not alone in that pursuit. Everybody wants to make that, because travel is ultimately very emotive. We do it for, I mean, when you say whether you do it for corporate, for business, or for pleasure, but ultimately we want to make it as seamless as possible, because ultimately it's about enjoyment. So regardless of why I'm going, I want to make sure I enjoy the process of booking it, getting there, and getting home safely. So I think that there's a space there that will improve over the next 20 years at a much rapid rate than it has in the last 20. And we will continue to see more and more startups or scale-ups or organizations, even as large as Booking, where we can plug gaps that have been there. I think that there will be a lot more in the technology for actual travel. So planes, trains will continue to improve. And so things will get quicker. That's something, we've seen the rise of the long distance flights over the last 20 years. I remember when Singapore to New York was launched, and that was the longest flight in the world. Now I think it's number 3, launching Sydney, London. So the technology is advancing that we can do these long distance, but I think it will get even better where maybe it's not even planes anymore that will get you from Sydney to London. But I don't know if that's in the next 20 years, but certainly the ability to travel distances at shorter times will come, which opens up a whole new world for people to go to places that they never even would have considered going to. So I do think or hope that also continues, and we've got flying cars and all kinds of things going around, then the world will be a great place to be traveling in. I do think that the technology will also allow, we talked about how people can travel different distances and it's becoming more affordable potentially to get to different locations. But I think language barrier has also put a lot of people off traveling. I think it's made people nervous of traveling, certainly the older generation, if their language capabilities were limited to their own. And I'm very fortunate. Well, I say very fortunate. No, I don't. Actually, very unfortunate. I think because by being English, become very lazy in languages, because English has percolated throughout the world, and as long as you can kind of get by a little bit, people are managing. Whereas, imagine if my language was only a smaller language that I didn't understand others, I would feel more limited about where I could go, or even as an English person, going to a destination where English is not widely used. So I do think that the rise of technology to support languages. So, Google Translate, where I can just speak in, taxi driver it can speak back to them, and restaurants. So it means that I think we've removed already that friction and that fear for people of going to any destination in the world, because the capability of communicating as that friction point, I think, has gone. Yeah, I think it's super important if we think about travel, whether it is language or different preferences of travel, that we provide inclusive travel. And that for us, booking is certainly very important. For me personally, it's incredibly important. So I'm wearing a Travel Proud t-shirt because we believe that travel should be for everybody to everywhere. So nobody should feel limited, and nobody should feel excluded. So whether that's me traveling as a female on my own, whether it's two men as a couple traveling, they should have the same experience. And we know that's not true today. We know from our research that if you are LGBTQ plus, your experience when traveling is very different to a normal man and wife traveling to a destination. It's very different. So I think that we have an obligation, if we are making it easier for everyone to experience the world, that we make it easier for everyone to have the same experience where they are in the world. And like I say, our research shows that that's absolutely not the case today. So I think that as we also help to educate our accommodation providers, and that's what Travel Proud is all about. It's not just about saying that we're about inclusivity. It's about educating our accommodation partners on how they can provide an exclusive experience. And we provide this training for free to make sure that they understand the differences. And it can be very well-meaning sometimes, but it can come across to somebody very awkward or very uncomfortable. And so we want to try and make that easier. And by doing so, again, it's not just about LGBTQ communities. It can be single females traveling by themselves, single males traveling by themselves. It comes with different connotations and different experiences. And I think we want to make sure that properties or any kind of travel provider understands that and understands the nuances that come with being fully inclusive. For the next 20 years, I can certainly imagine travel utopia. And yes, maybe I'm a little on the positive side. We talked earlier about the not so rapid enhancements, but now I'm a true believer that I think that everybody will be able to go everywhere. They will not be limited by, I think, hopefully we also start to see like visas. Do they even exist at some point? Yes, for some cases, but frictionless, borderless travel hopefully becomes easier, even though right now the world is probably going a bit the other way. I still think optimistically we will get to a place where it's easier. Traveling with your passport will not even be required. Your face will be enough wherever you go. Your language skills will not be needed. I can get to London very quickly, for example, or the other side of the world at an affordable cost. So yeah, I'm very positive about the experience going forward, and it will be inclusive for everybody. And whoever I am or whoever you are will feel that you have the same experience. And that's obviously sustainability is a critical piece, because if we want everybody to experience the world, there needs to be a world worth experiencing. And we continue to protect the communities from, the risks of taggable tourism and the potential dangers of it, and everybody going to the same place, and spread the tourism dollars to the communities that need it as well.